Okay, this is ridiculous.
Take two.
Take two. I think we weren't laughing at the start of the first one, so it didn't work. Welcome again, even though you didn't hear the first take. I am Brad Dobson with my wife, Dr. Minette Riordan. Once again, we're on the Path to Profit podcast today with our wonderful guest, Wendy Darling. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, great to be here with you both.
Oh, excited to have you, and thanks for rescheduling. We had to reschedule Wendy from crazy travel things, but the good thing about rescheduling is I got to see her live and in person instead.
I know.
Podcast, which is super cool.
It's true.
It's super true. So today we're going to be talking about living, we're going to be talking about leading, and we're going to be talking about love. And I want to share a little bit with you about Wendy and how Wendy and I know each other and how long we've known each other and why I'm super excited to have her on the show. But before I do that, Brad's going to share a really fun Bob Marley quote with you.
Cool. If I can find it again. Okay. The truth is everybody is going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for. By Bob Marley. Yeah.
I love that.
I think I've got a couple people on here that are worth suffering for, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, and it's like no matter how hard we try, we're human. We're not perfect, and we're always going to make mistakes. So I'm really excited to hear more about Wendy's take on this. But let me tell you why you should listen to Wendy. So first of all, you should listen to her just because she's my beautiful, amazing friend. And Wendy and I met at the Frisco, Texas Chamber of Commerce right after I started my publishing company in 2002. So we've known each other now for a long time. And our lives have taken us on some crazy journeys. And Wendy moved away from Texas and we reconnected when she moved back. And then we moved to California. And shortly thereafter, she moved to California, too far away though. You could have moved a little closer. But she's down in Carlsbad. We're in Santa Barbara. But Wendy has a tremendous amount of experience, and we'll have her share a little bit more about that. But she's a relationship and transformational change expert, speaker, author. I've seen her speak. She's fabulous. Pardon my nasally voice. I am recovering from a cold. She's the founder of the Miraculous Living Institute. She is a personal and professional growth organization offering presentations, seminars, retreats, and private coaching. But what I want to share with you is that Wendy has over 35 years experience, not only as a therapist and as a coach, but as an organizational leader and transformational expert inside of companies. And I think, Wendy, one of the things that I love about you is the way that you've been able to really bridge the personal and the professional in the work that you do with people. And it's been amazing to watch your journey as the fairy godmother and how you've helped so many women really find love in their lives, and men as well, because I know you do work with both. And so I'd love for you to share what's happening in your business right now and what are you really excited about?
Yeah, I think as you were alluding to what I've loved, it's hard to believe that I'm in my 36th year of my own business. I started when I was 2, and what I do love is how everything has started to come together. So I work with a lot of people who are, and I will say the majority of the people I work with are women. I do work with men as well, and I do work with organizations, but we're looking at results. So I'm always interested in how are you best positioned? How are you leveraging yourself in a way that you have greater impact and getting the results you want while still living the life of your dreams? I feel so strongly, and I was one of these people that, early in my career, I was exclusively doing management and organizational development consulting. And it was a very masculine type of environment. And I adapted well up to a point. And I think that even for men, but especially for women, the pendulum swung just a little too far in that side. And we've gotten our priorities and our balance a little bit off. And what I love is I have found a way to help people get back into their natural alignment. And when they do that, it's like, ooh, they find that sweet spot really much easier and get the results.
Can you say more about that? What does that mean for those in the audience that are listening to get back into alignment?
Yeah. So if you look at yourself, in essence, like a Rubik's Cube, and we're way more complex than a Rubik's Cube. There are so many different aspects of who we are in terms of the mental aspects of ourselves, our emotional aspect, energetically, our desires, our heartaches. There are so many different pieces, and based on our experiences, it impacts and allows us, unfortunately, to get out of alignment. So the way you know that you're out of alignment is, for example, you may not feel so well. You may be more fatigued. Your health may be questionable, or some things are starting to show up. I tend to also attract a fair number of people that are single and they're wanting to welcome love into their life. That's a missing that we close the gap, and that makes a huge difference too, because that's a very important piece of nourishment. And others maybe, they might be struggling in their business or their finances. So those are symptoms in my world, in the way I look at things, for what is actually off internally. And I'm a little biased, but what I love about what I do is I work with the inside to bring you in alignment, but I really have the skills so that we can structure and strategize what needs to take place from that point forward.
I love this. So I like the love doctor part, but specifically addressing the context of it as, if someone is single and doesn't want to be, that's more a symptom of a misalignment than just, their fate or their luck or their, ability to date or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So you're able to sit back and listen to a client and say, well, maybe you have, or I guess the point is that person would continue to struggle even with better dating skills if they didn't address the alignment issue.
That's right.
I see.
And I have a system called the Miraculous Living Method that I can immediately identify the root of what's creating the misalignment. Now, sometimes it's kind of like an onion, that there may be more than one layer, but we can get right to that core very easily and quickly. And so it's a system. So you don't actually have to explain everything to me, or you don't have to try to figure out any more than I do. We can find it and we can just shift it. And as a result, I would say on the average, people will attract love into their life within 3 or 4 months of doing this. One person has done it in 2 weeks, but I'm going to be honest, that's really the exception. And then one person, it took about a year, but we worked together. She was starting a new business. She was moving to a new city, lots of major changes.
Right. And so was it clear to the people that they really were able to search out, find, and address those misalignments? And then things flowed after that? Like they got success after that?
Yeah. Were they clear? They knew something was off and they knew they weren't happy. And what tends to happen is once I have a conversation with people, we kind of start unraveling that, and they get a sense that, I think there's something here that could really help me, and I don't want to continue the way things are.
So I love this whole process, and I'd love for you to back up a little bit, because I think one of the things that would be really helpful to our audience is not just the amazing work that you're doing, but you've had a lot of success in your career. And the fact that you have owned your own business for 35 years, I'm really curious in this concept that you teach of living, loving, and leading. What's kept you going? Like, what have been some of your best success secrets over those 30 years?
I've asked myself that same question a number of times. It's, first of all, there is something within me that just will not quit. There's that ever ready battery bunny that lives within myself. And I think at some point too, I thought, what else am I going to do? And, but the truth of the matter is, I really believe in what I am able to provide for those who can best benefit from what I offer. And, you know, I'm not going to lie. There have been times, you even know, Minette, you know, that I've been discouraged and frustrated, and I've had, you know, great times, and then there's been the lulls. But I've always had the faith that that I needed to persevere. And, you know, also because we haven't talked about this, some of my system came to me after a very serious accident. So I felt like I've been given a gift from the heavens. And I believe everybody, by the way, is given certain gifts. So I'm not just saying I was the one lucky one. But because of that, I hold that very close to my heart. And I really believe that I would not be given this. I would not have cultivated what I had if there weren't a higher reason and purpose for it.
Would you be willing to share that story? I love that story about what, and you don't have to go into any more detail than you want to. I know you share it when you speak, but share what happened and then what happened after and how that's completely changed your business and how you work with people.
It has changed my business. So I was just a regular management and organizational development consultant. And quite honestly, I was pretty much a type A kind of girl. And that means I was a driven force. And people today go, really? So,
Looks like
we can still hear you. The video froze up.
I froze.
There you go. You're back.
Okay, sorry, don't know what happened.
No worries. Just keep going.
It's the internet. It's probably
Okay.
our kids watching too much Netflix.
Yeah, so I was flying from Texas to LA for a Fortune 100 client that I was working with. And I was really, really sick, but that type A behavior, the show will go on. And so I went outside the Dallas airport to get some fresh air. This is obviously before the days of security like we have. And unfortunately, I passed out. I fell over a ledge and I fell over 25 feet. And
I know, it still gives me goosebumps, Wendy, every time I hear this.
And so the immediate aspects of it was my right leg was shattered. It took multiple surgeries, and I didn't know for about 11 months if I would even walk again, which I do. I had a broken back. While I was in the hospital the first time, around the 4-week mark, my former husband came, suitcases packed, and didn't want to be married any longer. And, you know, it wasn't like I'm a totally innocent person in this scenario. The timing just was not so great. And
That's quite an understatement.
And so, and then when we went to court, he was actually awarded full custody of our son, who was only 4.5 at that time, which really broke me into many, many pieces. And interestingly enough, it was my mom who suggested that maybe I might learn how to meditate. And at that time, quieting my mind was a complete oxymoron. But desperate times called for desperate measures, and I gave it a shot. And by the way, I didn't mention, I also was later diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury that took many years. And some people would say, well, you know, we know you're not quite there yet. But I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed to be this well. And while I was learning to meditate, I began to receive my healing gifts and my processes that I use today. And you need to know that I was not that girl before.
Right.
I was a very traditional person. Suddenly I'm seeing energy. I'm able to move it. I'm able to do a lot of different things. And it took me a while to literally come out of the closet, so to speak, to, I mean, I used to do my meditations, by the way, in my closet. So literally.
You didn't want anybody to know you were meditating?
No. And plus part of my healing work happens when I sing. And So I was doing it in my closet.
So
And
we can put the term traumatic brain injury in bunny quotes for you, I think. maybe it was a brain change.
it was definitely a brain change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why I was even saying earlier, you know, when you're given a gift like I was given, and I'm not just saying I'm the only one that has this type of ability, who am I not to share it? You know, so, and I share this not just because it's unique, but I also share it because I think there's so many of us that don't recognize how special we are or what our gifts are, and we're really shy about it. And so as a result, we don't really show or maybe even know what that might be. I've worked with people that think everybody's like that. And they're not. I mean, you guys work a lot with creatives. Oh my gosh, you know, that's juicy stuff. And a lot of creatives, I don't know if you have found this to be true or not, but my experience is that the confidence level is not always really high in terms of what they offer. They diminish their creativity.
Definitely.
Because it's so natural to who they are. But oh my gosh, you know, it's like my son is a total you see, I can't even say it. He's a total techie. You know, Brad, you're a lot like that too. Not my space.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I know where my lane is and I work in it. So yeah, that's how it started happening. And then over the years, it's been refined. And there's not a time that goes by that I'm just like, how did I get so lucky?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what is it for you, Wendy, that how do you step into the limelight and show off your skills and find clients that way? What are your techniques for, well, longevity in the business and continuing to, obviously find clients and make money, but also give them your gifts and share your stuff with them?
Yeah, I think for me, first of all, speaking is a really good platform because when people meet me or see me, they just have a sense. You know, I remember years and years ago, this is a long time ago, where I put a lot of ads like in the phone book. You know, I didn't get anything from that. I've actually done advertising, didn't get anything from that. So I think it really depends on your modality. But for me, it's best when people meet me. Now, I've also done some work online and leveraging that, you know, with technology today. It's wonderful to be able to reach out and from the comfort of our homes or offices and to do things that way. And I'm a networker. You know, I'm actually, I call myself a situational extrovert. I
love that. I've been looking for a term that's perfect. I love that.
It's better than ambivert.
Better than ambivert. Yeah.
What's ambivert?
Where you're sometimes introverted, sometimes extroverted, but
like ambidextrous.
Extrovert.
Yeah, because I love connecting with people up to a point, and then I have to have my quiet time. That's how I replenish. So, but that's really important. And I'm also, I get unhappy if I'm too much in quiet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that balance. And I'm curious, how does that serve you in working with your clients? Like which of those sides of you gets to come out and connect and model for the women you work with how important it is? Because to me, the extroversion, introversion is a lot about alignment, right? And realizing when we need to stop hiding and step out and when we need to retreat and take time out.
Yeah. You know, that's a great question. I really find one of the things that I pride myself in is I come into people's world. So it's not me saying, come into my space, learn how I did it. I really want to find out what's going on with you. So I'm always looking, just like I referenced the Rubik's Cube. It's like, what do we need to adjust? Are you staying a little too much in this lane and you need to branch out? Because that's the other thing too that I find is a lot of business people will end up spending a ton of time on their work, not enough time on themselves, and definitely not enough time connecting with people on a personal level. And so again, I'm biased. I know I'm biased, but I feel it's really important to nourish yourself first, just like the airlines talk about your oxygen mask.
Yeah.
You know, you need to put your oxygen mask on first. If I don't take care of myself, how can I possibly be good for others? The other thing too is, and again, I tend to work more with women than men, but I see it with men as well. A lot of people are very good at supporting others. Mm-hmm. They're not as good at allowing themselves to be supported. And women in particular, that's more of an issue. You know, I'm speaking in very general terms, that they don't do that. That takes some training and rewiring of patterns and habits.
So
I get that part.
Yeah.
I'm not one to take help too easily. So
not ask for help, but I'm curious, do you think that's cultural, religious? You know, what is it about the women that you work with that you see that makes us think it's not okay to nurture ourselves first?
Yeah, I think it's both cultural, because traditionally for many years that was more stereotypical how women were. However, I think because so many women are in the workforce in a variety of ways today, we've just had to say, you know, I am woman, hear me roar kind of thing. And there's been a real period of time of proving ourselves. And as a result, there's been more energy going out and not enough coming in. And that's why I really believe there are marriages, couples that disconnect more because they're so business focused. And I'm not saying give it up, but what I have...
Good, because we're not planning on giving up anytime soon.
Yeah, good. Yeah, but what I do find, and you guys do this, when you take time for yourself and your relationship first, you know, again, it's getting back to core values that really matter to you. I actually find people can become more productive. They actually get better results.
Yeah, that was, I guess not that early on in our relationship, but one of the coaches that we had, that the two of us worked with, it was I guess that was a big shift for me, as certainly I think Minette as well, we were just finally getting our heads up out of having toddlers and young kids, and both struggling with how business was going and that type of stuff. And her thing was, you got to remember who's first, and it's you that's first, because you can't do anything if you don't take care of yourself.
It's true.
And then after that, on the pyramid is you and your spouse or your significant other. And then after that is kids. Mm-hmm. And then after that is family. And then after all that is work.
And our pyramids were inverted.
Oh yeah, we had.
Right?
Most people's are.
Yeah. That was a big eye opener.
Yeah. And that's, to me, a huge myth. Because people think, yeah, if I give it, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people's eyes just get huge when I do an exercise in one of my workshops and they find what I call your entry point, where right now, okay, so if we're looking at really leveraging the results of your business, where do you need to start first? That's what I call an entry point. There are 10 categories. So many times it's family or relationship. And here, a real common example is men feel like they're out working, they're providing for their family. You know, women do that too. And yet, everybody's missing everybody, and they realize, oh my gosh, I have seen things turn around so fast and easy just from that one little piece.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think you add entrepreneurship on top of that, and it's a recipe for disaster if you're not prepared and you don't understand what that pyramid is supposed to look like, and you're not taking care of yourself. I mean, certainly this entrepreneurial journey that we're on, it's like you were saying earlier, there are definite peaks and definite valleys.
Yeah. And sometimes those times out are really important. There have been times where things have slowed down, and I knew I just needed to generate more stuff and do some things. But there were other times too where it was like, no, you need a timeout. And I would take a bit of a timeout, and then, or also in my case, there were times things might slow down and I would take a timeout and something new would get birthed. So I think to honor how you're feeling in the moment, and that's where I also feel I help people, is to help them dial up intuitively how they're feeling, get that knowing and guidance working a little bit better makes a big difference.
Yeah, I know personally, I spent so many years so far away from any type of listening to intuition, whether it, I mean, yeah, I guess I certainly made gut decisions, but definitely not listening to my body, not listening to just the things around me. Yeah, that's a tough one. And when you're working hard and head down, you tend to just lose focus on that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
we're not taught that.
Nope.
I don't think.
No, we're not. I mean, even, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. Our, son just graduated from high school. Brad's been traveling. I've been traveling. It's felt very chaotic. And that chaos creates disconnection, right? And so it's that moment of going, okay, something's not working here. And I love the reminder to come back to core values, to recenter and reconnect with ourselves and with each other as well. And because, as you know, with 35 years, building a business is hard work, right? It's a lot of hard work. And yet I'm curious, in that journey, we've gone down this a little bit. And so I want to pull us back to this piece about, why are you so passionate about relationships and about helping people find love?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. Way to go, Minette. First of all, I think this is where I got labeled fairy godmother. That has followed around years in different states. It's very odd, and I have finally surrendered.
Nice.
There could be a lot of worse labels. I think because of my own personal childhood and not knowing myself and struggling in a lot of ways with my own personal identity. And as I shared, not all of my life was just golden, even in my young adult years. I love turning people's dreams into reality. Whatever you desire, I want to support you in having that and experiencing that, because I actually believe the desires of our heart are there to not only to remind us of our truth, that it is your destiny, it's already your birthright. But in my opinion too, it's kind of like, in my world, I will use the word God, it's like God dangling a little carrot in front of us to grow and become more of the person that we were created to be. So I love being that little yenta, that little matchmaker type of person. Not that I do real matchmaking, but it's the dream part. I want people to be living happy, fulfilling lives, because I also believe that when we are fulfilled, then we can really make a difference. What some people call your purpose or your destiny. I just think it puts us in a position to really have greater impact and influence. And quite honestly, we're at a time, not just in our country, but our world, that we need everybody stepping up and stepping out more. One of my guidance, there was a day, it's now been at least a couple years ago, but I had this sense of, I need all my soldiers up and running. No more time to contemplate navels. And I really think that we are at that very tender crossroads where all of us need to make some kind of contribution in our own unique ways to help pull our country, to help pull our world together a little bit better.
I couldn't agree with you more. We may have related this on the podcast before, but we had our clients up for a training right over the election eve and election day for the 2016 election. And of course, we don't make any, we're not hidden about our politics. We're pretty left leaning and liberal. And so are our clients, and they were understandably shocked and disappointed by the whole result. And I was pretty upset, but I got to this place where I said this to our clients. I said, the best I can do is with this, retreating into a shell, being angry, all that type of stuff. I've been down that road before, and it doesn't help anybody, and it just eats you up inside. And whereas, what you're presenting and what I said to them is, the best I can do is to be my best self, bring my best for the next however many years, and add that to society. That's the best I can do, little old me. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Wendy. It's just, and I think for folks that are outside of the transformational industry, you get a glimpse of why people are in it and why people do the coaching, is because they get really jazzed about being able to see people get closer to being their best selves and bringing their gifts to the world.
Yeah.
It's pretty exciting.
I think that's also why I'm being pulled more to do work inside of companies again. A greater
a little bit more about that calling.
Well, first of all, my background really is in management development, leadership development, team development. That's really my sweet spot of what I offer. And, I take it a little bit further in the sense of what I call RQ, your relationship quotient. Because, it's one thing if you have a strategy. It's another thing if you have your structure, you have your processes. But if we're not really taking advantage of, if we're not really pulling the genius that exists within the organization, and I believe very strongly that it exists, but not everybody is good at pulling that out and really streamlining and solidifying those efforts. I think that it's becoming more important, because the other thing too is, if you're happy at work and you're feeling fulfilled and valued and appreciated at work, it's also going to translate to home, and vice versa. And I think our companies today, we see companies today that are operating more from that perspective, but there are a lot more that are not. And that's why we've also seen a lot of people like us that leave that environment to start our own business. So I think that there's a wonderful opportunity. I was just recently at a very large conference that were made up of a lot of HR people, a lot of management, training and development types. And, there were so many exhibitors. I mean, there were probably at least 1,000 exhibits in this conference. So many of them are focusing on leadership. And I couldn't help wondering, what is going on that there is still such a gap in finding ways for us to work better together? So again, because I do feel my sweet spot has to do with relationships, I really believe that if we create an environment, so for example, we talked a little bit earlier about introvert, extrovert. Well, there are different parameters that I have people look at just so that you know a little bit more about your style and the tendency. So I may be an introvert and I'm hesitant to speak up, but I may have really great ideas. And so it's important for the leader, the manager, to know the people in his team and what their tendencies are, so that people can start collaborating and working together. And when we start getting that rhythm and that dance, processes start becoming more effective. Productivity actually rises. And of course, bottom line, there's an ROI of increased profits. And it makes it easier, actually easier. I have gone into companies where in minutes I see, you just need to be doing this and this and this. And it's not necessarily major shifts. It's little tweaks that make big differences.
So I love that idea that, so I have so many questions going in my head right now. So let me take a breath. And so first of all, what I want to really acknowledge about Wendy and listening to this journey you've been on, and for people that are new in business, is how she's been able to integrate all of her experiences, all of your experiences, starting in this corporate type A world through this amazing transformational healing journey of your own, through relationships, back always to this place of seeing relationships as the core of everything that you do. And how beautiful to come full circle from really acknowledging how being that type A person wasn't serving you, and now how that ability is translated for you to be able to go into companies, large or small, or into couples, or into individuals, and really pinpoint that relationship quotient. And I loved that idea of pulling the genius out of people, or really helping managers. And I think just us as entrepreneurs, as I'm listening, thinking about our growing team, how can we pull the genius out of people? Right. And I think that's so beautiful. So I just want to acknowledge that amazing entrepreneurial journey that you've created, and how beautifully you've been able to fully integrate all of the talents and experiences into the place you are now. And I know that's not been a direct line or even always a smooth journey.
Yeah.
But this place where you're sitting is so beautiful. And I love that it was other people who dubbed you the fairy godmother, and how that just stuck, right? And how that really stuck.
It got a little spooky at one point. It's like, okay, what's going on? But like I said, it's pretty sweet. And I even like what you're talking about too, Minette, because it really is so very important that we allow ourselves permission to be authentic. Mm-hmm. Authenticity is like such a high core value of mine. And to be able to be okay. And by authentic, it means I don't have to be on, I don't have to be this or that. If I'm having a bad hair day, it's okay to have it. If I'm feeling sad about something, and I think that's where emotional intelligence comes into it. We talk about IQ, our smarts, whether they're innate or learned. We have EQ, emotional intelligence, is kind of like what I'm talking about, but we need to take it further, where we support each other in our authenticity, because again, the environment that gets created is really, it gets really rich. Mm-hmm. And there's such a myth that we shouldn't be a certain way in an organization. We shouldn't be in a way with our partner. I mean, I believe that mischief happens not necessarily when something is spoken, it's when it's not. Mm. And that's why it's so, so very critical, whether we're talking about a couple, whether we're talking about an organization, a family, whatever. It's important to create that environment, to make it safe to express yourself, no matter what. Now, I'm not talking about somebody having permission to projectile vomit all over everybody else. I'm not going extreme, but there's a big difference when we, it goes back to the old original brainstorming techniques, where you just throw out ideas, you don't judge. And that there are no wrong answers, particularly in the beginning. There maybe is never a wrong answer to begin with. But then let's massage it and look at what's really best here. And it's amazing. You guys know this. You start here at point A, but now we're at point O or P. And it's like, holy Moses, how did we get here?
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
So when you come down the stairs in the morning with your hair all messed up, I should just say, I support you and your authentic self.
Yes, you should say, instead of saying.
Oh, I never said anything other than that.
And yes, that's at the very least of what
I've heard you talk about mischief before, and I love how you use that word because it brings an attitude of play to the conversation and takes away the good, the bad. It really takes away the judgment of he said, she said, and I love this, mischief happens when people don't speak up, is what I heard you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm curious how you see that playing out for people in their love relationships. It's clear to me, that it's very obvious in work situations where people are afraid to speak up, but I think it really impacts people in their relationships as well at home.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, first of all, because of our experiences, we have certain beliefs, we have certain habits. I do a lot of work with training the brain and how the mind is programmed a certain way. We have ways of protecting ourselves, of keeping ourselves safe. And there's a lot of subconscious programming. We don't even realize it's in operation. So with couples, first of all, I'm a big fan of the 5 love languages.
Mm-hmm.
It's a system that can break down communication. Brad, you may be saying to Minette in your language, I love you, but she's coming from a different language, and this is what happens. Even though you think you're saying, I love you, I appreciate you, I support you. Well, the same is true with what happens when we don't speak up. So it might be, that little irritation, it's like, why the heck can he just not get that spoon back in the right drawer? And just think, I shouldn't, that's trivial. I shouldn't speak about it. But one of the things I do with couples, because I do work some with couples, is, and I'm happy to share this, is a lot of times the irritations start building up because the appreciation level is starting to decrease. And so one of the quickest ways that I have seen couples do 180s. Is literally to have appreciation dates. So every day at a certain time, what works for you, usually it's after the kids or whatever, or depending on if you have children or not. And you sit down and you look into each other and really connect and say, what I really love and appreciate about you is, and you fill in the blank. And then the other piece that I think is really important before you switch is, and how you could best support me right now is. And I think this is
fantastic.
Important. And I think that that's really an important piece too, because just like we talked about earlier, people, either it's like, well, you should know me well enough now to know what I might want. Well, I might want one thing right now, but in 5 days could be something really different. Or I just might want a hug. It just depends where you are in the moment. And it just keeps that connection between the two of you more well-defined. The appreciation level goes up so that when there might be something that you do need to speak about, it's a lot easier, because also it's really important how you share that. It's not like, you so-and-so, how come whatever. It's more, first of all, you always ask permission. When we ask permission of another person to talk about something that could be sensitive, there's a very different listening. If I say, Brad, there's something that I've been thinking about. Do you have time to talk to me right now? And either you'll say yes, no, or we'll negotiate a time that it works. Because I don't know about you all, but if somebody just starts telling me what I should do and how I should do it, I'm not really good at that. But if you say there's something you want to talk to me about, I have a whole different listening. And that is such a key component as well. And then, of course, you speak from your own perspective. I'm just noticing that, you've been saying that you're going to do the dishes and put them away. I'm just using this as an example. And it seems like you get 3/4 of it done. So what can we do? Because I don't want to feel annoyed. I want to be able to support you if there's something we need to figure out differently, because you really did say you were going to do this. And so for somebody, for example, that has acts of service in their love languages, that's really important to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing the dishes and you've said, that means you don't really love me that much.
Yeah, it's so simple. I love that book too. It's a great book. And I really appreciate that reminder. And everything that you just shared, I think translates equally beautifully to the workplace as to at home between couples, married couples or not married couples. But this idea of the appreciation date is really beautiful. And that always asking permission to share a difficult topic.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as sales conversations, right? Is now a good time?
Right.
It's that just asking permission and preparing people. In fact, when I was still doing some relationship work, I remember this woman sharing about she and her husband, like she was a really slow processor. It took her a lot more time. And so if there was a difficult conversation and they needed to make a decision about something or move forward, he was the opposite. He moved really fast and wanted quick decisions and quick information, and she needed time. And they realized they had to negotiate the amount of time so that it wasn't moving painfully slow for him. And he felt like she wasn't giving any credibility to what he was asking about. And she felt like her need to take time to process was also being nurtured and cared for. And it was such a great example of how they were able to really understand their need for a response and their need for timing, just really beautifully. It was one of those examples that's just stuck with me for years. And it's so akin to what you're saying. It's everything's a negotiation, right? It's not about telling anybody to do something or you must or you should, all those words that trigger all those little parent voices in our heads and push our emotional buttons. It's just beautiful. I so appreciate it. So I'm curious, I have one last question for you, and then we want to have you share how people can find out more about you and connect with you further. So if you could wave that fairy godmother wand, what's one thing you would love to see different in our world today?
Oh, I would love to see people kinder to each other. Just like what we were talking about. It hurts my heart that so many people are suffering. And the way that we see it is through a lot of this anger and frustration, and people are struggling in their own ways. And instead of us lending a helping hand, it just seems like more anger keeps surfacing. And I think more acceptance that we're all unique. We are all human. Well, sometimes maybe that's in question, but seriously, we need to be kinder to each other. I sometimes wonder what has happened that so many people are this frustrated, this angry, that we're seeing these types of attacks, and even, the things we've seen lately, like on airplanes, and, it just seems like it's getting worse and worse. And we're also, of course, very aware of it because of technology today. But I really do feel that things are escalating. And that's why I also feel as strongly as those of us that can really create that environment to the extent. I mean, there are people like David Hawkins that have proven that if one person stands, in essence, in a very loving, kind space, it impacts, I don't remember his scale anymore in this moment, but it impacts hundreds of people. So when you ever feel like you're the Lone Ranger, what can I do? You can, in fact, make a difference. And the more of us that do that really can make a difference. So that's why I feel Don't ever feel discouraged that, hey, I'm just one person. No, you are definitely one person that can make your difference. My definition of heaven on earth is when all of us own our gifts and our talents, and we cultivate it in a way that we make our mark, we make our contribution in our lifetime. And if everybody would do that,
I love that.
Pretty darn sweet.
And it's so interesting because if we were doing that, we would also be accepting responsibility for what we're putting out there. And it would take away the blaming and the shaming and so many other things. I love that. I just love the positive spin you put on living, loving, and leading. It's really powerful. So Wendy, where would you love to send people to connect with you more?
Yeah, it's very easy. You can go to my website, wendydarling.com. There's information about different things that I offer. If you want to speak to me, have a strategy session in terms of finding out more what I offer, how it can serve you. There's a link that you can just sign up for that. And then you can even email me, wendy@wendydarling.com, and I will answer emails.
I love that.
Perfect.
I love that. So that's wendydarling.com. And yes, that is Wendy Darling, just like Peter Pan. Best name ever. I love your name. And I love the just humor, delight, and passion that you bring to relationships. I want to just say thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. And I wrote this down. I would love to just see people being kinder to each other. It's that one thing can really change the world.
Lovely.
Yeah.
It was wonderful having you on today, Wendy.
Oh, my pleasure. I love hanging out with you guys. So this is like double fun and double wonderful.
I know, so fun, and so fun to get to see you in person and share some time with you as well. And of course, we're absolutely delighted to share Wendy Darling with all of you, our listeners on the Path to Profit podcast. And if you love this show, please go on over to iTunes and leave us some love. We would love to have some reviews on iTunes about what you like about the Path to Profit podcast, and share more about what you'd love to see coming up in the future. So we've got lots more great content in line as we go into year 2 of the Path to Profit podcast. We just recently celebrated our 1-year anniversary of the podcast. So it's been an amazing, fun journey, and one of the playful things we get to do in our business well. So we're Brad and Minette. We're the Path to Profit Academy, and you can find out more about what we're up to at the pathtопроfitacademy.com, and we'll see you on the next show.
Bye, guys.